I found out today that the Iconoclast has had his account removed from YouTube. The Iconoclast is one of my favourite YouTubers. In fact, I'm not much of a YouTuber. I try and spend as little time on social media as I can get away with. But of the small number of people I do watch, he is by far my favourite of those. He's reasonable. This is a person who is strong and tough, but reasonable. And that's why he's been closed down. Someone said to me, but there's people who say so much more controversial, so much worse than him on YouTube. Why are they shutting him down? And that's the reason, because he's reasonable, because he's not a fruitcake. He's more likely to be listened to. They will leave the fruitcakes up there. In fact, they enjoy that. They enjoy the fact that the anti-globalist, anti-mass migration argument is presented by real racists and the real far right.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to SJJMAS. This is number 28. I've hooked us a whale for this one. It's the Iconoclast. Welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you for having me. Merry Christmas to everybody. I just realized it's Christmas Eve, isn't it? I thought it was like the 23rd or something. It's Christmas Eve today.
Yeah, Christmas Eve.
What a funny video to start off with, by the way. That's I haven't seen that one for a while.
Yeah, I dug that out of the archive. Obviously, I thought I've got to scram. Yes, a little bit of info about Iconoclast. Watch a bit of back stuff before he comes on. So, I mean, I saw that one still up on YouTube. I mean,
oh well, yeah. And does she still have the one that she made maybe 8 months later, where she's just shitting on me? Shitting on, yeah, because she hates Mark Collett, right? And yep. I'm not sure of the personal history between them, but there's something there. And obviously, when I started chatting to him and PA at the time, she really didn't like that, and she kind of shit on the pair of us. And she changed that tune, but that's fine. It happens.
Yeah, it's interesting how the landscape has changed. I mean, let us just, for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, the Iconoclast was a huge figure back in. Did you call yourself alt-right at the time?
I think that term was a little bit before me. That was like in the first Trump election, wasn't it? 2016, but the alt-right was a big thing. By the time I came along, I've never called myself alt-right, but I guess my ideology is basically the same thing. It's just called nationalism now, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you were like this renaming it into like the dissident right as well. But you had like, what was it, 200,000 subscribers when you got nuked?
Yeah, no, like nearly 220, I think. So it was decent for the time. I think for this country, it was the biggest alt-right channel, if you want to use that, in the UK. So yeah, but it was of a time, and that time's done. And now, like you said, the landscape changes constantly, and right now we're in a very different landscape than we were back then. And I think it's pretty exciting, personally.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. This is part of the reason I want to get you on. But let me just show everybody. Look, his archive is still on Internet Archive. I don't know if you put this up there yourself or whatever, but it's like all the videos still here.
No, I didn't have anything to do with this, so I don't know who's responsible. But yeah,
the internet's forever, I guess. Exactly, somebody has been putting it all up there, so you can look back at all this stuff. And according to this, your last video was demographics. What's the big deal? An introduction, which I think
there might be a few missing from that, but I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that. I think if people were to watch my stuff now from a 2024 paradigm, they might think, well, what's the big deal? Because I think my stuff's really tame. And even since then until now, my beliefs have evolved as well. So if I ever see any of my old stuff, I'm kind of thinking, God, that was kind of lame back then. I don't see the big
that's
deal.
The beauty of it, dude. That was the special thing about it. It's like hooking in the normie, isn't it?
Yeah, I think. Well, and I don't know if there's even room for that type of content anymore. Quite frankly, I think people know what the problems are, and they're more looking for solutions these days rather than, oh, look at this news story, how bad it is. I think people know. I think real life has smacked them enough where they know these things. So I don't know if my channel would even get that much play these days. quite frankly.
I think it would, which is something I want to talk to you about in the future. Here's a little taste of it.
Birmingham changed from this to this.
These videos at the time, bro, I'm not just pissing up your leg to give you one feeling. These were instrumental in, I know, effect. Look, I think I may have been affected by them. I may even be here because of you and a few of the other characters who were putting out this content. Gave me another reason to think about things in a different way, kind of a license to not be politically correct and to like have like the shutters lifted from my eyes and realize like what's going on with the country.
Well, that's interesting to hear. I think I was going to ask you because I don't really know a lot about you, and you invited me on your channel a few months ago. Was it in the end of summertime, something like that?
Something like that, October maybe.
Yeah, and I was a bit too busy at the time, but I said to you, ask me again near Christmas, near the end of the year, and you did, and I thought, well, fair play, why not? I'll jump on and see what you like. But I don't really know a lot about you. So, what brought you here? What's your story?
So I was a kickboxer. I was an aspiring kickboxer for a while. I was going to be, potentially famous at that. It didn't work out because of COVID. That all fell apart. And I started, I don't know, just like doing stuff on YouTube, in a very minor way. A few videos here and there. Obviously, I don't have a big channel. It's like 1,000 subs at the moment. I look at when the Black Lives Matter thing happened, that was a big inflection point for me. I saw things turn on a light, like a light switch. And I realized that in that moment, it's as if a group suddenly realized their ethnicity. And they're like, when they've been playing the game forever of like, we're all the same. In that moment, a light switch can be flicked and suddenly people are wearing like their skin as a uniform, and this was like a really like it was a really red pilling moment for me, and I like projected this out into the future, and I thought, wow, in like 20 years, 30 years time, when we are a minority in our own country, are like my children going to be oppressed for the historic crimes of white supremacy?
Right, yeah. So that would have been the George Floyd version of Black Lives Matter, not the previous one a few years ago.
No. Yeah. The George Floyd one, it transferred over here in London. There were protests and everything. Yes, a lot of our like white lefties were involved in that, Antifa and that, but I remember that very well, and it really opened my eyes to everything.
Well, it's right there in front of you. It's in front of everybody to see. And it is just racial politics. And that's the way the world operates. It's only European people that are told to be individuals. Nobody else thinks like this in the world. Everyone is acutely aware of their own groups and identity. And yeah, it's right there. And it's becoming more and more obvious as days go by.
Yeah, at once and the same time, though, I am torn because I have like this Englishman's ideal to be represented, to want to be heard by my government. I don't think I'd want to live under a despot or a king. People tell me this is like the Anglo mind virus that has been bad for the world. But yet it is still part of me. I think it's still part of the English spirit, our yearning to be free and not oppressed. And so I tried to marry the two together. In fact, I heard on that stream we're going to talk about in a bit, Hugh says that in his opinion, it's only a vicious authoritarianism that could like change things around. And he worries people aren't ready for that. What do you
Maybe think? Not. I don't know. We'll get into that stream in a second. But I think for me, if let's just say that I was gifted a piece of land in the middle of the ocean, and it said, okay, there you go, Dan, create a new country from the ground up. What kind of institutions are you going to have? How's it going to run? I mean, first thing I would get rid of straight away is democracy, because I think that's just nonsense. I don't think it works. So you talk about a despot, and I know it's easy for me to say this, but having almost like a benign dictatorship where they do the right thing, not the wrong thing. Again, it's easy to say that, but I think the democratic experiment across the Western world isn't exactly going very well. And maybe you can make an argument to say, well, it would do better if mass immigration wasn't a thing, because then people wouldn't vote for their own self-interest and whatnot. But I don't know. I think it's open for subversion anyway. And I think we've tried it and it doesn't work particularly well.
Yeah, so look, let's talk about this stream that also really affected me. It was like a year ago. It's what I messaged you about. Let's talk about it, see where you're at now. There was a stream, everybody, a year ago, back in June, on Dangerfield's channel. I've linked it in the description, in fact, so if anybody wants to go back and watch it, you can. And it's called, controversially, England, ? It's Over. And on this stream, Dangerfield and Dan are talking. Can I call you Dan, by the way? Sorry for dropping that.
Of course you can. Of course.
Dan, the Iconoclast, is talking with Dangerfield, and then Hugh comes in, one of the other Three Stooges from their time doing streams back together. And Hugh is like, I'm done with this scene. I'm done with it. I've changed. I feel like the right wing kind of, I know, is, would you say, a corrupting force? He was like talking about it. It's no good for people. There's better things to put your time and energy into. You're not going to get what you want. You're only going to get it with a vicious authoritarianism. Britain is done for. You need to like either get out or do something else. And you called it being beyond the black pill at the time.
Yeah.
How do you feel about all that currently? I mean, things have changed, but
things have changed. And that stream that you're referring to, again, you've linked it down below for people. It pissed a lot of people off at the time. It really did. It was, yes. And I talked to Chris beforehand, and I said, the title is deliberately, it's
provocative.
It's deliberately provocative, and it's going to rub people the wrong way. But I think the conversation at the time definitely needed to be had. And Chris was black pilled at the time. Hugh was beyond the black pill. He's getting on with his life. He's done. Yeah. I think, I haven't listened to the stream for a long time, but I think I was trying to find a way forward. I was looking for someone to kind of say, follow me, this is the way. And at the time, I couldn't see anything like that happening. And being black-pilled, it's like, I always liken it to catching a cold. You feel yourself getting a little down, a little bit depressed. Maybe you can't breathe properly. You don't get out of bed, and you just feel like shit for a little while. And then it starts to clear up, and you emerge from your cave again and live life. And I think that's what getting black-pilled's like. I think my mistake is anytime I do get overly black-pilled, I should just log off and not say anything. Because there's one thing to feel the way that you feel, but to put that on other people is not great. And I've apologized for when I've done that, when I've been overly negative, when I don't have to be. But it does happen. That's just the mindset you're in. I don't consider myself black-pilled anymore. I think I'm a cynical optimist. I'm a cynical optimist. That's what I am. I think since that stream was done, a lot of things have changed in the world. And we can, they might not amount to anything, but I look at the mood and the general atmosphere, and I know you can't really quantify that, but the general atmosphere of this country and Europe specifically, I think has shifted quite a lot. And I think, as we were just saying, racial politics has become front and center. And now you're even seeing all these CivNat types talking about racial demographics. They're alluding to it. They may not be as visceral as you and I are, but they're alluding to it, and that's where the conversation's heading. I think in 10 years, that will be one of the more dominant mainstream discussions. That we'll get on to Farage later, but I think you'll even hear him talk about this, at least in some way. And that's just where I think the wind is blowing. So in regards to that stream, I was black-pilled at the time. I was looking for a way forward. I think that way forward is starting to present itself now. And I'm optimistic. I really am. Despite, seeing the bad news every day, it still happens. But I do think things are moving in the right direction slowly.
Yeah, well, this is the stream that we're talking about. Link is in the description. I do recommend everybody goes and watch it. It actually had a real effect on me at the time. So, I mean, it's a conversation people need to hear and ask questions. Because a lot of truth is said in this, Dan, that people do get obsessed about like I know statistics of like crime news stories that are like dreadful to wake up to. They sit there, they're watching it all the time. They get in this headspace, and you can become infected with like thinking that there's no hope in your own life, and then like live out that life as like this, a life of no hope. And that's not necessarily the case, even if, and I don't want to believe that the country's over, but even if it's over, you don't have to like live that over lifestyle. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, I mean, you can decide how you react, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think, if you really are feeling hopeless and, excuse me, a bit angry and black-pilled about it, then I think just logging off for a while is honestly, that might be boomer advice, but it is true. You log off for a bit and do something else. Because, that's what I think. I think I've lost my train of thought, but I genuinely agree with you. And there's nothing worse than putting your own bad mood on people. I'm never one of these guys that goes on about mental health and all that shit. That's not really my thing. But there is something to be said to constantly exposing yourself to just shit news every single day, disaster porn. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of our guys tend to do. And it can take an effect on you. It really can. So I think just kind of check yourself sometimes and maybe have a break.
It's easy to react, isn't it? To be the react guy, reacting to everything, looking at what's bad out there. But then you become filled with that. This is like what you consume. You are what you eat in a way. And so you become this like lost, broken individual who thinks that there's no hope, because like that's the trajectory that you see the country being. That's a good way of putting it. You are what you eat. It is the same thing. So I'm not saying just turn everything off and go watch a Christmas movie and feel better suddenly about things. That's not the way it works. But you can limit your exposure to shit news. We all know things aren't great out there. You don't have to watch everything that's going on. You don't have to dive in the deep end and indulge yourself and cover yourself with it. It's okay to just step back sometimes and have a more aerial view of it. Yeah. And there's some truth into like what Chris is saying, and I guess what you have seen as well, that people get involved in these movements and it's not necessarily good for them how it turns out. And you, like, are an example of somebody who sacrificed a lot for it. So it's easy for people to say, oh my God, you should just get involved, but then see like the sacrifices that are involved. You can get doxxed. You can, you can build up a channel like you did and think, I imagine at the time you probably thought, wow, I could probably live off this or something. I'd think that if I was getting a channel that big, and then it's all taken away from you. And this can be like hope dashing. How do you stay resilient after something like that, Dan?
Well, I don't think it was that. I think I had it pretty easy compared to some people. I know people who have been debanked. Like, they're not even allowed to be part of mainstream financial services. So how do you even live in that regard? It's crazy. I got doxxed by a national newspaper. I had everything deleted, banned from basically everything. But I kind of expected that to happen. It happened to a few other people. It was worse for people in my life than it was for me. I was more concerned about them because they didn't really understand what was happening. Journalists knocking on the front door and all that. You don't need that. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But I think now I just see what's happened since then, and I'm just enthused by all the new people I'm seeing pop up, all the ideas put forward, the pressure, especially on social media, to push like deportations, remigration, all this type of thing. It is overwhelming right now, and it's only going to grow. And I take positivity in that because that just wasn't happening during, 2020, 2021, those type. And COVID has a lot to do with that. COVID really took the wings out from underneath us, I think, in many ways, and slowed us down quite a lot. But I just take positivity from what I'm seeing other people doing right now. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, I look at the landscape and I see that like the alt-right was ascendant in 2015, 2016. Then there was like, I don't know, the great shutting down of which you were part of in 2018, 19 and 20. And now we're like resurgent again, or at least this is how I feel. The censorship gears Do you think they seem to have been lifted a bit? I mean, obviously there's Twitter. I mean, X is now an open platform. It feels like we can get away with more on YouTube. I mean, touch wood that I'm, saying this, but it feels like we have a little bit more leeway to speak about this stuff. And I don't know if that's because it's more ascendant. People are, like, the winds of change are, like, expanding out there, or what it is. But it feels like we can start talking about this stuff again and get it out there.
There's only. I mean, I think all the censorship back in the day was. COVID played a role. I think that was used almost as an excuse to shut everyone down. Like, we can't have misinformation going around and all that shit. But I think now you can only slow down public perception so much. And I think it was a case of containment from big tech. You can't talk about this without clearly mentioning Elon Musk, who's bought Twitter, X. If that hadn't have happened, I don't know if we'd be in this situation. And your handle on Twitter is, what is it?
Musk Maximalist.
Musk Maximalist. So is that an ironic thing, or are you actually fully on board the Musk train? What's going on with that?
So I am fully on board. Okay. I whilst being self-aware, so I'm fully aware of the criticisms of Elon Musk. I'm fully aware of, like, even the Thunderfoot criticisms, and there's a load of other channels that expose Elon Musk for his scamminess, for his lies, for all of this kind of stuff. I don't actually care about that in a way.
Thunderfoot? I haven't heard that name for fucking 10 years. That's crazy. Thunderfoot. My God, that's a blast. Jesus.
Oh my God, if you haven't seen it, check out his channel these days. It's literally just Musk derangement syndrome.
All right.
So,
I might do that.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Well, anyway, the criticisms against Elon Musk are that he's a scammer, that he's a liar, and I also have some friends who tell me, like, he's, I don't know, working as a foreign agent for a foreign government. Maybe all this may be true. It still doesn't change the fact, in my opinion, for a start, I mean, it was the cool space stuff that I was interested in, like a normie at the start. But then, I mean, he says he was he was woken up to the woke mind virus. They tried to trans his kid. He'd had enough. I have to believe that there's, that this is, I take this on face value that this is true. I see that he went and bought Twitter, now in hindsight, with a long-term plan in mind. It was clearly like a long-term vision. Anybody who says he's stupid must be wrong about this. Like, a year and a half ago, he planned to basically buy the American election via buying a social media platform, and it worked. It was like a genius move, and he may have changed the direction of history.
Yeah, and you see people complaining about this from the left, or even some cooked right wingers. They say, well, if someone on the left was doing this, which they have throughout the entirety of history, by the way, but if someone on the left was doing this, you'd all hate it. But if it's Musk doing it, then you're all for it. And it's like, my friend, it's about winning, isn't it? At the end of the day, and if you refuse to play the game by the rules that are set out, then you're going to lose the game. That's just the way it is. And Musk, I don't really have a lot of complaints about him. I don't look that far into him personally, but I see what he's actually done with the platform and what he's allowed to flourish on the platform. And I think without that, I think we'd be in a much worse position. It does count for a lot. And for whatever personal problems he might have, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. That's my mindset on a lot of things these days.
Exactly.
And Trump, I've got a lot of problems with Trump, but I'm not going to say that I wish he didn't win the election. It doesn't make sense to me. I think, again, it's a process. And a lot of these things are symbolic victories, and maybe they'll push people in the right direction rather than having an impact results-wise straight away. But I think we're starting to see that now.
Yeah, what you said there, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, is exactly how I see it. I mean, like the original Trump phenomenon came in like a wrecking ball that allowed like everything else. Maybe even Brexit actually was the first domino to do that. Thinking back, actually, I think Brexit was just before, wasn't it? Anyway, those two events are definitely things which like kickstarted the belief, at least the belief that that we could enter politics and do something differently, even if we have got screwed, maybe like by the Trump first term, maybe we'll get screwed by the second one, who really knows? But like, where else do we put our faith at least in the short term, if not with like the electoral options that are on the table and that are viable at the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is no other options at this point in time, is there? Because and I would say on that note, if you look at the recent elections in Europe, where you see all of these so-called far-right parties getting into power, Meloni in Italy, for example, and you think, wow, well, to me, that just shows the mood of the people and the direction that people are thinking. It doesn't really matter about the politicians themselves, because often they are disappointments. I mean, Meloni hasn't done anything that she said she was going to do. She was promising huge deportations. And I think there was a news story recently. I did post it on Twitter, and I can't remember all the details, but she was trying to have some deportation happen, and some judges blocked her from doing it. Some court blocked her from doing it. And it was very much this attitude of, well, we tried, but look, we're not allowed to do it. And my thought is, look, just fucking do it anyway. What are they going to do? Just do it. You're there to serve the people. You've been elected to do these things, and just some fucking judge is going to tell you can't do it. No. Yeah. So there is a lot of shithousery going on in that realm. But I think for me, if these people are getting elected at all, it's because the people desire this radical change. And there's going to be a point where they're not going to accept people failing and saying that they can't get things done anymore. And my only issue is it might take too long. That's the only issue with that. But again, I don't want to bring the mood down, but I think it is very positive in that respect.
Yeah, we're definitely working against the clock. Obviously, we can see the demographic time bomb happening. I mean, we all get wrapped up in way too many issues for my liking. The whole alt-right and the whole dissident right now, whatever it's called. The one thing that we all care about is the demographic collapse of Western countries. And I think we can all forget that is like the number one issue that we all that's what we're all here for. I don't care, obviously I care about the peripheral issues, but we can like lose sight of the main target sometimes. This is the thing we need to make people aware of, surely.
And I think that when COVID, sorry, I've got a bit of a bad throat today, so excuse me.
You're good.
When COVID was in its prime, I think a lot of people, including myself, to be honest, got distracted with that entire thing and lost sight of the demographic issue. And it really set us back a couple of years. But you can see now we're snapping back pretty quickly, and things are happening. And the whole hashtag remigration thing online, I can't tell you how many times I go to a comment section, whether it's on YouTube or Twitter or any other platform, and it's something about, I don't know, an illegal committing a crime or an immigrant doing something bad. And loads of these comments are just like, they all have to go. They have to go home, remigration. And that's it's so overwhelming. And I know the internet isn't real life, but it certainly is a precursor of what the real world starts to think, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I reject out of hand these people who say that the internet can't have any effect. I'm sorry, it can.
Of course. Well, if it didn't, then they wouldn't have been so censorious back in the day. They went out of their way to shut down dozens and dozens of people. I mean, everyone that I know from the scene at the time is not even on YouTube. They're all gone. They've all been banned. I think, except I saw someone in the chat mention Dave Cullen. Now, he was never an ethno-nationalist, but I think he just does film reviews now. He doesn't even do anything political. So he's just switched and done something else with his life. And that happened to a lot of people.
Yeah, Dave in particular. Let me track back to what you said about COVID. A lot of people did like really go down the COVID rabbit hole. I understand it because it felt existential at the time. So it like took place of like this demographic thing that is like, I know, a decade out. It's a bit like feels a bit like climate change, doesn't it? It's like, oh, it's just over. The left is with climate change. It's this thing that's out on the horizon. In a more stark way, demographic change is much, much more real. But
and you know what? You can't blame people for being caught up in that whole thing, because we never seen anything like it before. Anyway, it was something unprecedented. I never thought, and by the way, that entire time just completely puts to bed the argument that the government doesn't have power to really change society, because they did all of that. Like they arrested people for having barbecues in their garden, and they shut everything down. Don't tell me they don't have the power to do these things. There's no reason why a nationalist party in government couldn't do all the things that they say they want to do. And to believe anything else, I think, is asinine, really.
Yeah, like I said at the start, COVID basically... what a lot of these boomers don't realise is that it ruined young people's lives who were coming of age right at that time. It was like their prime period, and so particularly for somebody like me in sports, it was like the particular moment where like I would have made it, or you know, I would have like broken into the mainstream, and basically everything was shut down for a year, in a year and a half in various chunks. You know, like screwed everything up. So, you know, it was existential at the time.
And there's been a concerted effort by the powers that be to make people just move on and forget it ever happened. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, let's move on. It's like it almost didn't happen. It was like that. But it was crazy the amount of power that was used there in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. My broader point is there's a lot of really positive things happening right now that make me optimistic, even if I am a bit cynical and sarcastic at times.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of that in a minute. But I just want to talk about COVID, right? Did you see everything change in terms of demographics, like drastically after COVID? I heard you on like Chris's stream talking about going back to your hometown somewhere like after 2020, and you were like, What's happened here? This is like radically different all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, it was, and I'm sure everyone watching has similar experiences of this. I remember it must have been 2021, something like that, and I was just walking down the street one day, and I realized that, whoa, what's with all the Africans? What's happened here? You know, it was so it was almost overnight, and I was in the post office around about that time, and there was a big queue of Africans in there, and they were all waiting to use the passport photo machine. You know, those things that you sit in and you press the buttons and it takes a photo of you. And they were all speaking in their own languages, so they're literally fresh off the boat, these guys, right? Fresh off the plane. And they've clearly been instructed to go and get passport photos taken. So you could tell, even in a town like where I live, which is very working class and overwhelmingly white, the changes were happening. These people were getting dropped in and instructed on what to do next. And I think a lot of towns are experiencing the same thing. And it's so blatant. It's not even, they don't even try and hide it. And the whole fucking Turkish barbershop phenomenon is insane. There's about 12 of them in a 2-mile radius of where I live. And, you know, maybe not 12, 6 or 7, but still, it's like, it's overwhelming. And everyone, and vape shops as well, nail salons, all of these, everybody knows that these things are dodgy. Everyone knows they're money laundering fronts. And the police know as well, by the way, but they don't do anything. So, yeah, it's very blatant, and everyone knows it. It's obvious.
Yeah, I make the joke that my MP, all she does is drive down to London in a bus and bring back migrants once a week. This is all I think. I'm aware of what, you know, basically what she's up to. Literally, I come from a working class town. It's one of the most deprived areas in the country, actually, like top 10% deprived.
Wow.
There's no opportunities here for anybody. And all of a sudden, since like 2020, somehow my town is like now becoming full of African people who don't speak English. I'm like, where have you come from? What are you doing here? You know, why are you all hanging around the bus station smoking ganja? What the heck is going on? I mean, I've got a photo here, right, Dan, that I took in my local town. This is what I took this.
Is she carrying a fucking little bag on her head? Is that what's going on there? Oh my God.
That is what's going on there, yeah.
Wow, that is. Well, you've been culturally enriched, it seems, so well done.
Yeah. This is not an unusual sight anymore, by the way.
Wow. I knew, you know, on the barbershop question, I knew a guy who was a manager of a pub in Durham, which is a very nice local city up in the northeast. And it was next door to a Turkish barbershop. And he said that, they're just dealing drugs out the back all day long, in the back alley behind the... They're just dealing drugs, and the police know about it. And the police have visited several times. They never shut them down. You know, the police are probably on the take. I don't know. So... The point is, like, you see these changes happening in society rapidly, and what incentive is there for the regular British person, a regular law-abiding citizen, to see all this and think, well, why should I follow the rules? What's in it for me? Well, if everyone's just doing what they want without consequences, shoplifters don't get arrested anymore. They're just allowed to do whatever they want. And this is why I think, other than the democratic system, which I have to admit I'm not very faithful in, I think we are heading for some kind of societal collapse, and that doesn't mean cannibals in the streets type of thing. I mean a collapse of our institutions, a lack of trust, a complete ignoring of what they used to stand for, and people searching for something new and something fresh to build in their place. And I think that's essentially where we're heading, which is why I'm optimistic.
Yeah, but you're not a doomer, are you? I mean, here's the thing. Or you say you're not a doomer, at least at the moment.
I try. No, I'm not. I'm not. I try not to be, but sometimes I can catch the cold, and it happens.
Yeah. Here's my assessment of people on our side of the fence. Right, I see that we're separated into basically two camps. We've got people who are all waiting for the full collapse, for a power cut and a chimp out, and they think that we're going to retake society, and they don't believe that there's any point in getting involved in any political options until that point. There's no point. It's just we're waiting for the day, and so that's a vast constituency of DR people, dissident right people that I see, and then there's others who say, look, let us try to affect politics. Let us try to influence political change. We've got currently ascendant is the Reform Party, and again, irrespective of whether Nigel Farage is a Pied Piper, or a foreign asset, or just a misguided individual, or the real deal, and he's woken up and smelled the coffee and decided he wants to do something, it is a political option on the horizon that is saying we at the very least want to do something about illegal immigration and immigration in itself. What do you think about reform?
Well, just before I get to reform, I think what you said there is true. You're right. You get a lot of dissident right people who kind of check out and say, well, when it's time for the revolution, we'll pick up our swords and all that shit, right? But it's not going to be Mad Max. I don't believe. I don't think that's what it's going to be like. Yeah. and the people working in grassroots politics now, they're doing it because you've got to build a foundation up to a point where you when the time does come, so to speak, then you can act, and people will flock to you, and there'll be momentum there. So I would never discourage anyone from doing anything like that. Yeah. When it comes to Farage, I think he is super disappointing in a lot of ways, but like we said earlier, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I think having Farage in Parliament, despite I want him to be more vicious, I want him to be more visceral, and he, for whatever reason, isn't doing that right now. I think it is a positive step to have him there. And I'm not going to comment if he's bought and paid for. I don't know. Who knows, right? Everyone could be bought and paid for, but let's just take it at face value for this conversation. Yeah, I think what Farage has shown is he is able to be pressured into a certain direction or action. Can you remember before the election this year, he wasn't even going to stand. He was going to go to America for some big media career. And then everyone called him a coward and a piece of shit. And then he changed his mind, said, okay, well, I'll come back and I'll kick Richard Tice out of the leadership role. I'm going to lead the party, and I'm going to run, and I'm going to do this now.
Exactly. Let's go.
And it was because everyone told him, fuck you, Farage, what you doing, you piece of shit? You need to do this, right? Yes. So I think he has that in his brain where he can be influenced by that kind of outrage and online surge. So from that perspective, I mean, I would encourage people to join Reform if they can. They would never let me in because I'm known to them. I know Farage doesn't appreciate me. I know that. But other people, if you don't have an online presence, you could get into Reform and kind of work your magic in there. I don't see why not. It's worth a go, and they are on the rise. I mean, as much as 5 MPs. Is it 4 or 5 MPs they've got right now? 4 or 5.
Might be 6. Didn't they get an extra one?
I'm not sure, but people might say that. Oh, that's just such a low number. But no, in our system, that's a wedge. At least they've got that. But yeah, nobody finds Keir Starmer inspiring. The way that his government have run things has been it's always been an accelerationist dream. The way that the Labour Party have started running the country. So, yeah, I would always say, like, look, don't throw these guys out before we've had a bit of a play with them, if you know what I mean. So let's see.
Yeah, it's 5. So it's 5 MPs. Now, interestingly, a friend of mine put it to me like this: that what Reform are doing are they're divvying up the jobs effectively, and anybody who doesn't realise that they are like working a strategy is mistaken, because people say like Nigel is being cocky, but he's like adopting the leader role. He is doing like social media. He's doing puff pieces. He's going to see Donald Trump. He's doing all this kind of stuff. Then there's Lee Anderson, who has like been given the responsibility of parliamentary politics. He's got the experience. He's in Parliament doing X, Y, Z. Then you've got Rupert Lowe, who's acting like the based candidate. Have you seen much of Rupert Lowe, by the way?
Yeah, he's been given. It seems like he's been given free rein to just go out there and speak the truth, or at least as close to the truth as he can. Yeah, the attack.
I'd say he's like the best. He's like the best MP in Parliament at the moment. He's pointing out. He's openly talking about demographic change. Openly talking about migration. So he's doing the based and red-pilled stuff. And then you've got the new guy who's like learning the ropes, and then you've got Richard Tice, who's probably like managing like the party.
Yeah, I don't even know who that James guy is. I haven't seen him before. I'm not caught up with him.
Yeah, he's a new guy.
Yeah, did he defect from somewhere, or was he voted in? Did he defect from the Tories?
I don't know anything about him either.
Oh, well, fair enough. Me neither. He's just there.
Yeah. He's there to learn the ropes. So the criticism that I've heard about Reform, it comes in a fewfold. Like they're leading you up the garden path, so you can't trust them, because basically, Nigel Farage has a history of gloating that he destroyed the BNP, so he's never going to be a nationalist. He's never going to be on the cause. Okay, accept that. But now, the other criticism against them is that they're not going to be effective. They're not going to do anything. They're going to cut to the mainstream. They just want Tories. They want to like bring in Conservatives and all this kind of stuff. But this kind of is losing sight of the issue that we have a political party now, actually, at least through Rupert Lowe, making our political points. And everybody is like just against it, like instinctively, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the dissident right sometimes has a bad habit of talking themselves out of a good thing. Yeah. And like we said, we're not saying these people are perfect. Of course they're not, but it's something. And in these times, I think you've got to try every option. You've got to just see how things work out, really. And like I said before, Farage personally can be pressured into adopting things that he said he wouldn't adopt. I think didn't he say that there was no political solution to deportations, right? Well, I guarantee we can flip him on that easy, because you've got Trump in America talking about mass deportations. Whether he'll do it or not is another matter, but he's talking about it. You can get Farage on the same page, and a lot of the leaders in Europe are doing the same thing. So look, I mean, I think the frustrating thing for us is it takes a while. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's a lot of pressure and a lot of work, and you've got to keep on their tails, really. You've got to snap at them. And look, I mean, you've got smaller parties like Homeland coming out, and I think you need parties like that as almost like pressure parties to try and influence the way that things go and to drag the conversation in the Overton window in the right way.
Yeah.
And I think, Reform are ripe for this type of pressure. And again, I think if people can join them and kind of work things from the inside, then maybe that's a good thing. We tried to do that with UKIP back in the day, but the thing with UKIP was they were just incompetent on every level. Honestly, it was so unprofessional, and the people in there had no idea what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah, didn't you attend the party conference with Gerard Batten, was it, at the time?
Yeah, it was God, that was 2018, I think, a long time ago. I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I liked him at the time.
I liked him too, but he wasn't that charismatic, bombastic figure that you need to be part of a right-wing party. He was.
Yeah.
I thought he was very good in what he did, but he wasn't the guy, so to speak. And Farage had left by then, so that was it. And UKIP were on borrowed time. I don't even know what UKIP are doing now. I have no idea. But there's apparently still a thing. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Just on Gerard Batten, I mean, at the time, I don't think that he had bad instincts in wanting to bring in the alternate media characters. Like, yes, it kind of blew up in their face, but he brought in Sargon, he brought in Count Dankula, and like this was like at the time, it might have been naive, but it was like it was the right thing to. It was probably the right thing to do now, rather than in 2018.
Well, I think looking back on those times, it was so funny. They were so entertaining, by the way, for anyone who remembers it. But I think Sargon and Dankula, I think they should have just remained as very influential media supporters of UKIP rather than running for seats themselves. I think that was the kind of blurred line that you shouldn't do that. And I think that, I mean, UKIP didn't have the natural public swelling of support at that moment in time because things weren't as bad as they are now. Reform had all the momentum behind them because the Conservative Party had wrecked the country immeasurably, and everyone knew that the Labour Party would just be a continuation of that. So I think they had something natural flowing in their favour, and they were like, "Fuck it, we've gone through COVID and all that," and everyone was just like, "Fuck the mainstream, we're doing this." And I think UKIP in 2018 were just a little bit early, unfortunately. But look, it happens. But they were very funny times, if anyone was there.
Yeah, Hugh, even one of the Three Stooges who we were talking about earlier, he even debated Carl in a very famous thing during the election campaign.
That was great. That was a great video. If anyone, I don't know if you can still find that. Some archivist has probably got it somewhere, but. Yeah, that was good because Sargon at the time was he was like the civic nationalist king, or the liberalist. The king,
liberalist.
Yeah. Now I think he's improved a lot. I mean, even I've had some quite positive interactions with him online, and I think, I mean, that would never have happened before for whatever reason. But now I think everyone's just kind of a bit friendly with each other, banding together more. There's less infighting, I think. There's people still do it, but I think overall, I think people are more collectivist in nature. Which is good.
Yeah, the trajectory of Sargon is a really interesting one. It's like he became, I don't know, post-liberal in a weird way. He like went through that phase, tried his best, even tried to enter political, party politics, and realized like the gravity of the situation, and then came out of it realizing we need to do something else, and these people can't be reasoned with, and I'm not. We need another way out. So he's like,
it's almost like the path that everyone wishes Douglas Murray took, because Douglas Murray, like a lot of these people, these establishment media figures, they are so good at pointing out the issues that people face every day. I don't know if you've ever read The Strange Death of Europe from Douglas Murray.
No, I haven't. I'm aware of it.
So it's a big thick book. It's super depressing because he talks about the migration crisis and how bad it is for Europe, and then it just kind of ends. There's no solution. There's no way forward, and all he has to say, and he won't do this for various reasons, but all he has to say is, if Europeans collectivize together, we could actually fight this and reverse it. That's all he has to say. But he can't do that because the people that he supports and support him, that's the last thing that they want. You cannot have white European collectivism as a mainstream political movement. You cannot do it. So there's just this continuous media campaign of look at how bad things are. We have to be individuals and promote British values, whatever they are. And that'll solve everything, which it clearly will not.
Yeah, so with that in mind, we have to, in my opinion, we have to look to incrementalism with our politics. I heard Richard Spencer talking about this the other month, where he said, look, what people don't realise is that, like, a lot of British people are very liberal. And, I mean, and this is just the way that they are. Yes, people are waking up to seeing the problems, but at their hearts, they're still liberal. I mean, I think if you look at a polling even on something like abortion here in the UK,
Oh yeah.
people vote like 90% in favour of it. It's not even a question. So like
Yes.
what people mistake is they look at America and how like Trump can go around and do a platform on mass deportations. And they look at it and they say, why can't we have that? Why can't Farage or a politician just come out of come out and say things like Trump is saying? But Richard Spencer was trying to make the point that like the British people aren't ready for that yet. And so, in a weird way, we have to play the game of incrementalism first for it to get like to that stage later on. And if you give him the benefit of the doubt, and he's not a Pied Piper or whatever, this is the argument for Farage that at least he's doing that. And in that particular interview that you were talking about, where he was saying there's no political solution for mass deportations, he was basically trying to say in a technical way, there's no political appetite for it right now. It's not politically feasible right now, but he would be like, he didn't say he didn't want it.
But he's a clever guy. Yes, I agree broadly with that. I think British people being liberal, they are and they aren't. I think a lot of people are, it's like this boomer thing. Well, common sense. What is common sense? Up in my end of the country, people aren't very liberal here, man. Like, they're not. I mean, they're liberal on some things, but it's a mixed bag. They don't really like mass immigration at all. In fact, they really, really hate it. And a subject like abortion, I mean, in Britain, it's always going to be tough because abortion is, in America, it's always almost a religious issue as well. And Christianity in this country just doesn't really exist anymore. So that, I mean, I don't want to give up on everything, but I do think that abortion in this country, at least for now, is just a lost issue because people don't think about it in the way that Americans think about it. They just don't.
No.
But on the subject of immigration, I think the British people aren't very liberal at all, actually. And I think the way this will change is if the middle classes got a taste of their own medicine. If these illegals being shipped in would be dropped in their neighborhoods, maybe in Richmond, for example, I think they would change their tunes pretty damn quick. And I think the right people, quote unquote, haven't been affected negatively yet by all of these policies. So for the moment, they're going to remain liberal, but I guarantee they will flip. When it affects them, they will flip quickly. I don't know if you've been keeping up with these things going on, these migrant hotels near schools, for example. In various parts of the country, and these migrants from the schools are hanging around. These migrants from the hotel, are hanging around by the school gates, taking photographs of children. And suddenly you have these parents that I guarantee would have never done anything political in their lives, turning up to council meetings, shouting at elected officials, really putting the news out there. When it starts to affect people personally, they will flip, guaranteed. And the way things are going, there's no way that these things will not hit them personally, because it's just going to happen. It is. Even in a town like where I am, I've just told you, it's changing very, very quickly.
Yes, definitely. Like I explained to people, Dan, this sounds crazy to people, but I didn't see a black person in my town until at the most 10 years ago. And now it's a different town. So that's such a wild change. And most of that came after COVID. And I'm not just saying, obviously, I'm not just being racist for the sake of it or whatever. I'm just saying that this is such a shocking change. It's as if it's overnight, in the civilizational scale. It's like, boom, and where am I now? Walk down.
Isn't that such a fascinating thing to explore, though? Because I feel like that's what a lot of these middle class people in these nice neighborhoods are like. If they walk down the street one day, which has always been, they know all their neighbors, it's a majority white and homogenous. If they walk down the street one day and they see that black woman carrying a shopping bag on her head, that photo you showed me, right?
For real, yeah.
I think they're going to do a double take and say, what was that exactly? What did I just say? And then it goes on and on. If they walk into the post office like I did and see a line of African men queuing up to use the passport machine and they can't speak English, I think they're going to do a double take. And that's just the way things are going, I think. And and it's funny because I've spoken about this ad nauseum, but when I had my political awakening, it was because I went to Paris, the capital city in Europe, and I was
Oh my
expecting to
God.
have
Wow.
I was expecting to have a nice little trip, and what I saw was the third world. That's what I saw,
Yeah.
and it was very visceral and in your face. And there was a moment where I was thinking, wait a minute, am I actually racist? Why am I having a problem with this? Because I was young and I didn't know anything, and I was like, why do I have this feeling in the pit of my stomach? Do I just hate black people? And that's not the case. There was something fundamentally wrong with that location. What had happened to that city? And it's happened everywhere. But there's something, and I knew it, and everyone knows it. People can pretend that they don't care. People can pretend that they're fine with it. I guarantee, deep down, everyone feels the same way. They're like, no, this is not right. This shouldn't be the way it is. I mean, white flight from London tells you everything. Why are they leaving? Come on, they know it.
Yeah, I have a Paris story as well. Thinking back, going to Paris on the...
Everyone has a Paris story.
Yeah.
No, they do, yeah.
I went on the underground, on the, whatever it's called, the train, the Channel Tunnel thing. And, maybe this was like a seminal thing in my, like, awakening as well, because this was like something like 2012. And I was... Yeah, so maybe I realised as well, because you get off the train in Paris and you're like... what is this? Where am I? This is like Mogadishu or something.
The Gare du Nord station in the centre. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Really.
Yeah, and you go to under the Eiffel Tower, and it's literally the army are walking the streets in fatigues, and everybody else is like an African guy trying to scam you.
Well, when I was there, you could just walk under the Eiffel Tower, no problem. But since then, they've erected I don't know if it's still there. I'm sure it is. They've erected a huge glass bulletproof wall around it, and you have to have your bags checked before you go in. And you think, what? Is nobody asking questions about this? Like, is nobody saying, "Oh, why do I have to go through a security check and get a metal detector to go and see the Eiffel Tower? What's going on here?" I would actually love to go back to Paris sometime next year and document it and just see what it's like and compare my thoughts now to when I first went. Well, it'll be 10 years next year now. That's when I had that experience. So it would be a very therapeutic thing, I think. It would be interesting.
Well, it'd be much worse by now, surely. I mean, it's not gotten any better.
Right, yeah, you're probably right. I'll stay in a nice area this time. I'll make sure of that. Christ alive.
Yeah, I just went to the Eiffel Tower, looked around, thought this is absolutely horrible. I can't speak to anybody. Everybody was... Unfortunately, the few French people as well, they're rude as well. So, I mean, this was like, it's just a horrible place to be. Unfortunately, I wouldn't advise anybody to go. And then I got in a taxi to get back to the train station. I thought, fuck this, I'm going back. And it's just one big traffic jam. And it took us like an hour to get back somewhere, which would like take to walk 30 minutes.
Yeah, and look, I mean, a lot of capital cities have problems. Don't get me wrong, but
sure,
I think that was just so. It was so dominant in my mind because Paris has this huge romantic reputation about it, and it's surviving on name recognition only at this point. Like a lot of cities, I think New York is similar. London is, London. We don't have to go into that, but a lot of these cities are going down the same route. And that's why a lot of people are leaving, man. I mean, I don't want to get sidetracked, but what do you think about all these Westerners that leave and they move to places like Dubai, for example, or I think the new one is Bali. Everyone's going to Bali because they can live in a mansion for €200 a month or something. I don't know. All this nonsense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. These are the guys who are like digital nomads, I've noticed. They're the people who they can make their money online, make a business where they're selling goods in like Great British pounds or US dollars, and then you can go and live in another place and basically live for like, I don't know, $1,000 a month or something. But you're making your money in the Western economy. So it works for them. And I was going to ask you about this too, because this was like basically Chris's advice a year ago and Hugh's advice. They said to young people, they were no holds barred about it. They was like saying, get out, get wealthy, make some money, sort your life out, get financial independence, look after your own, fuck throwing your life away in politics, and get out of England while you can.
Yeah, well, that's. I said this on the stream. It's easier said than done. I mean, it's it's fine for them. What about the guy who he's 33 and he lives in Rotherham and he's got 2 kids? Like, what does he do?
Yeah,
and,
he can't get out.
There has to be something for that guy, and there's millions of people like him in Britain. There needs to be something for that guy to rally behind. There has to be some light at the end of the tunnel, at least, even a chance at something hopeful. So, what is that? And that's what I was looking for, and I still am, but I am optimistic that it's going to come up. And you'll never see me move into Dubai or anything like that. That's not what I want to do. And for good or ill, I'm stuck here for the foreseeable future. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, have you figured out this trick how people make their money online and they can just like export themselves, but like still make their money in our economy? I mean, it's a wonderful thing if you can figure it out. I don't.
Well, the irony of that is when I had my channel, I did do that. I made my money online. I could have lived anywhere, quite frankly, but I don't know. I think the way you make money online now is by telling people how to make money online. Isn't that how they do it? That's kind of the industry.
Oh, these are the scams out there. Sorry, there's somebody letting fireworks off outside my house. By the way, I live in Chav Central right here. I'm really sorry about this.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But no, look. I mean, I work for myself, right? So I do make all of my money online right now. I'm not going to say what I do exactly. Don't want to make my life harder than it needs to be.
No, don't box yourself anymore.
But the point, like working online is going to be the norm in the future. It just is. People can do it, but all these pipe dreams that are sold on YouTube, you see all these gurus, they call themselves. You can make $17,893. It's always a very specific number dollars a month by doing this, and you can't because it's bullshit. But they
give me kids. It's selling you how to make that money. That's how they're making that money.
Yeah, well, they're getting your click, which is worth a various, in the money making niche online. So that click's worth a decent amount of money, and if you're particularly gullible, you'll buy their course and figure out that you've been scammed. But that's just the way it is. I used to say to people, if you've got a passion in life, follow it. But I've done the complete opposite, because when I followed my passions, I was like dirt poor. I had nothing. I really, it was crazy. So I don't know. People figure it out.
You have to find something that you can monetize that you love. That's not always hard. That's not always easy. Chris's advice was that if you're young, then you should just like grind and take anything that's on offer. You should lower your standards. Too much. If you can get something else, okay. But you shouldn't be that guy who looks around and says, "There's no perfect job for me," and so we'll wait for it coming. You should just get on and grind, make some money, put money into an investment account, and start to actually save some money. This advice I've mentioned this in the past. Chris's advice actually affected me personally. I started doing that. I listened to him. I started doing it. I started putting money into an ISA. Only a little bit, but it feels better for it. So,
well, it's better than leaving it in the bank to just dwindle away because of inflation. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do with your money. I'm not a financial advisor, of course, but yeah, I've got about 10 minutes left, mate, because I'm going to go see my parents tonight. So if you've got anything else, then let's go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you see things in 10 years' time, Dan? That's one question I've got for you, roughly.
Jesus. Well, I said before, early in the stream, I did say that I think the demographic topic will be one of the more mainstream talking points in society. I just think that's the way it's going now.
What about Prime Minister Farage? Do you think that's a possibility? Odds lowered just like last month to 5-2 from 100 to 1.
I actually do think it's a possibility. I do. Yeah. I do. I don't know if it'll be with reform. I'm not sure about that. But I think if not prime minister, I think he'll have a very substantial role. And but I think the remigration issue is the issue, quite frankly. And if people just double down on pushing that, I think there's a lot of pressure to be had.
Yeah. Another question that I had at the end. What do you think about what the Woodlander is doing? So this is guys who are doing like their own thing. They're trying to separate themselves from society, separate themselves off in a niche, become independent, live outside the society. Do you think this is a path forward? Or, I'll be honest, I love the word lander, but it seems like something only applicable to like retirees or something. It doesn't seem like something I could like even think about right now.
I don't know either. I support him doing it. I support anyone doing whatever initiative they want to do. I don't know if it's for me personally, because I think if I was to do something like that, I would have to be all in. You know what I mean? Yep. And I think you've got to have that all in mindset to be in that kind of initiative. And there'll be loads of people that do have that mindset, but I don't think I'm one of them. But I support him fully, and I hope he does really well out of it.
Yeah. Okay, the final question that I have for you is something that a friend of mine always makes me think about, right? And it's right. He says
it's not about dating, is it? I heard you went on a date this week.
I did go on a date this week. It didn't go that well, but no, it's not about dating. It's a serious.
I just saw it in the chat. I thought, maybe I'll bring it up. Let's see. I'd like to hear it.
No, it didn't go that well. It's not worth reporting on. Look, a friend of mine says the very fine balancing act of a dissident is to critique your own society whilst not being whilst not doing the work of a fifth column to a foreign power in your own country. So this is like the argument that there is foreign influence, whether that be, like Yuri Bezmenov talked about active measures, Duginism, the Chinese, the Israelis. How do you feel about foreign influence, particularly maybe in dissident movements? And I always worry, am I doing the work of like somebody else's enemy? Am I doing what they want me to do?
Well, why would you think that though, from your perspective?
So, because I look at something like, I even look at Brexit, and I was like, was this the right thing to do? During Brexit, I ran around my town for 2 weeks, and I famously posted the entire town every night at midnight. I plastered the whole town with Brexit posters.
Wow.
And I look back and I think, was it the right thing to do? Did we do the right thing? What was it basically? Well, I know what people wanted us to do.
It's two different things there. The idea of Brexit, I believe, is a completely right one. What do you call it? Give me the word. I'm losing
the implementation.
The implementation of it, yes. I think that was botched deliberately, quite frankly. And I don't know. I think back in the day, because I was very enthusiastic about Brexit too, and once did I think, oh, is this a psyop? I don't think you can go through your life thinking like that. I think if an issue is important to you, you've just got to go with it. And Brexit has been an excuse to bring in more non-white immigrants, as far as I'm concerned. Like that's just the way it's been. And they were all going to come here regardless, but it's been accelerated massively now that we're not getting a lot of Europeans. So I don't know, but the people never wanted that. The people never wanted more non-European immigration. They didn't want immigration at all. It's just been co-opted by the wrong people. And maybe that was always their intention. I don't know, but I don't think you can go into any issue and think, oh, am I going to aid the enemy in what I do here? I don't know. I wouldn't think like that.
Yeah, it's tough because people even say this again, this is the reason why you shouldn't support Trump or whatever. He's a Zionist and all this kind of stuff. So it's hard, but my friend always reminds me, it's a fine balancing act you have to do, and be careful of not being, falling into a trap. But
and by the way, what's the issue with getting passionate about something, supporting it, and then if it doesn't work out, critically evaluating it later and saying, "Oh well, I was wrong on that." What's the problem? At least you gave it a go. You can't predict the future, and nobody's Nostradamus here. So just find something that you want to believe in and push and do it. Why not?
Yeah, and all we can do is take things at face value because we can't know what's behind the scenes, can we?
Yeah, we don't have the Palantir from Saruman, do we? We can't see everything.
True. All right, I'll just run through these super chats. Kumit says, thank you very much, by the way, Kumit. He says, got to juice the super chats. Merry SJJMAS, everyone. Call it a tax rebate, seeing as everyone else is being a Grinch this SJJMAS, except John 2029. P.S. Joe is gay. Well, I can't agree with that, but thank you for the super chat.
That's an in-joke that I'm not aware of. I will see that.
Yeah. Oh, it's my chat, dude. They just fight amongst each other all the time, and I just let them at it. I don't censor anybody. Kumit also says, Merry Christmas, Iconoclast, absolute legend. It is a tradition of SJJMAS for guests to sing a Christmas carol if you fancy to go. Also, happy holidays, Stephen, I guess.
I will not be doing that, but I'm sure the donation is much welcome. You've already paid, so never mind.
Thank you very much, Kumit. And again, Kumit says, Putin has run out of money, but Stephen Broughton has a message for you or something, I don't know. Broadcast Kalergi conformer, can't even afford a few rubles. So this is another in-joke. We have somebody who super chats to me who I say is like paid for by the Kremlin. So thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah. That would be good, though, if he was. I mean, you're indirectly being funded by Russia in that case. Who isn't at this point, right? He
donates in Serbian dinars. So.
All right. That's nice.
Okay, Mr. E-Wings says, thank you for coming on, Dan. Happy Christmas to both of you, and best of luck for 2025. Dan, it was really great of you to come on. You're like my big fish for SJJMAS, so I really appreciate it, bro.
Well, yeah, it's been fun. Sorry I have to take off, but it is Christmas Eve, and I said I would go see my parents, so it is what it is. But yeah, thank you very much for the chat. Merry Christmas, and have a good one. I'll be watching a few more of your shows until you. When's your last show this year?
Oh, they've all been impromptu, so I don't think I have anything else booked in, but I'll get something in the next day or two, definitely. We'll keep going. We'll keep rolling until, I don't know, just before New Year, probably.
Oh, great. Yeah, well, I'll keep up with you, mate, and it's been fun. We'll do it again sometime next year. How about that?
Excellent. Yeah, let's do it. All right, Dan's link to his Twitter page, where he still is live, is in the description. Go and follow him on X. And Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks.